after having got quite obsessive over it in the wake of the BBC adaptation, the new BBC version of A Christmas Carol over Christmas, I've kind of come to a place where it's like Christmas is just, it's more a tool that is used by Dickens to convey something a lot broader and deeper than anything to do with Christmas itself. I think it's about life itself. It's about our own relationship with the world around us. It's our own relationship with ourselves and within ourselves, and with things that have happened in the past, and what we are in the process of becoming as we move into the future. And so, yeah, I was absolutely blown away by the BBC adaptation of A Christmas Carol, which they showed in 3 parts over the week running up to Christmas. I thought it was just an absolutely beautiful telling and opening up of the story, and it kind of turned it into a real tale for our time. Like, there's themes that, you know, are bringing it to a place where it is speaking to today, even though it's still set in kind of Dickensian England, in Victorian England, but there's something in the portrayal of the character of Ebenezer Scrooge that speaks to something of today. It speaks to many different situations and people, and certainly there was parts of me that was like, whoa, this is the most, I suppose, empathetic, or I don't know if that's the right word, but there was a connection to the character of Scrooge in this version, and where it speaks to today, there's this kind of numbness and this disconnection, projecting a monstrosity of humanity experienced onto the world. It's got a lot of strange hate, weirdly as well, from people, which, I mean, that's always a sign of a good piece of art. And, you know, if it doesn't kind of land in the zone of mediocrity, if it divides people, if there's people who think it's amazing, as I did, and then there's people who think it's like the worst thing ever, then, you know, that's not a bad thing. Not always easy to deal with as a creator of that sort of stuff. But, yeah, I guess it's doing something effective. It's speaking, it's saying something. And I wonder whether part of the hate, other than the use of the odd bit of swearing and difficult to decipher dialogue, might have been how close to home the character of Scrooge actually feels at times throughout it. You know, still miserly, mean-spirited, and unwilling to part with his money and be kind and that sort of stuff. But it's through an air of separation. It's through an air of dislocation. Not the kind of self-stylized bar humbug cynic that we might think of when we think of that character of Ebenezer Scrooge. It's not someone who's going out deliberately trying to inflict pain on others. It's a story of disconnection, you know, becoming unwedded from humanity through past experiences and inflicted wounds, things that have happened to him, things he's unaware of that have happened to him as well, as you sort of discover through the show. And I can't stop thinking about it. It carries such application for all of us as we consider our relationship with other people, with the world around us, and with ourselves. You know, it's about anchors and tethers that keep us from transcending what might be perceived as the way things are. You know, Scrooge sees the world through his own eyes, and he's utterly convinced that he's the only one who actually sees the truth in this respect. You know, everyone else is just playing their part in some sickening performance where, you know, everyone's pretending like they're happy or joyful or whatever, and it's seeing that through his own eyes of disconnection, dislocation, separation, alienation from himself, within himself, that then projects out into the world. And one of the ideas that I kept coming back to as I was reflecting on the story is that the idea of ghosts. And so this, obviously, the ghosts of Christmas past and present and future, and this idea of these spirits taking him on this kind of journey, I suppose, through looking at his life through the mirror of those 3 perspectives. But the idea of ghosts, I think, really is powerful to think about, you know, for ourselves. The presence of an absence. We all carry ghosts around with us. You know, I'm always struck in my work as an undertaker by the notion of spirit. And at one level, no one truly dies. Their spirit lives on in different ways, be it through the traditions that we might carry on, the things we might do because they are what that person did, the words that they spoke that we remember, the example or the legacy that they left with their lives. That kind of that footprint that is left by people who pass on, but they're never truly gone in that sense. When the body stops functioning and they become physically absent, the spirit maintains this presence. Like the memories we might recall when we encounter a certain smell or a sound or a physical space, just things that then conjure this spirit of that person who is a present absence. And so there's something lovely about this idea. But there are also negative aspects of the ghosts we carry. The past, harsh, critical voices from maybe parents or significant people growing up, teachers, even strangers. Those voices that enter our minds with doubts and disbelief when we come to act or to enter certain situations, face opportunities, challenges, whatever it is. These presences define our worldviews, our values, our behaviour. But they're like the water from David Foster Wallace's 2005 commencement speech at Kenyon College, which I'm sure I've probably referenced it one or two times before, when he says, there are these two young fish swimming along, and they happen to meet an older fish swimming the other way, who nods at them and says, "Morning, boys, how's the water?" And the two young fish swim on for a bit, and then eventually one of them looks over at the other one and says, "What the hell's water?" And so the water is like the spirits of past experiences, traumas, pains, relationships, conversations. They drip feed us with what we perceive to be reality as we harden ourselves to experiencing them again, away from experiencing them again. But they speak to us. We swim, it feels normal, but we don't know how the water is because we don't know what the water is. And so we have no sense of kind of agency or choice around the type of water in which we want to swim. We don't realize that there is even any sense that we can kind of move the water itself. And so the ghost of Christmas past, as we will see in a minute, it's the old fish showing us the water in which we are swimming. Have I laboured that metaphor enough? I know it's got holes in, but the water will sort of drip through. Right, I'm going to play a song now. So this is part of some changes that I'm making to the podcast this year. I've been experimenting with it in the extended play episodes. So I'd just sort of, sit here behind my piano, speak a bit, play some music, and it's just kind of nice. And I like it because, there's these, I really want to kind of bring these different parts of me, my life, the way that I express ideas and myself and that kind of thing, which all knit together on the Patreon only show quite well. I talk about my music and creative process and stuff. But I also want to bring this into this space as well, the public podcast. walls break back like spider fractures, beasting, walking the line. Oath sworn, dry mouth, short term, get out, sandstorm blows me away. It's impossible to wake someone pretending to sleep. It's impossible to wake somebody like me. It's impossible to wake someone pretending to sleep. It's impossible to wake somebody like me. Head in the sun, feet in the sea, submerged within nature and the places I flee. My form isn't good, but getting better with age. It's protected by prayer and the minimum wage. A bottle of hell is only short-lived. Slicing up dreams, they're all allocated. I reel and squirm from pressure and time, and I pretend to myself that I'm doing just fine. It's impossible to wake someone pretending to sleep. It's impossible to wake somebody like me. It's impossible to wake someone pretending to sleep. It's impossible to wake somebody like me. So yeah, that was called Pretending to Sleep. We're talking about that one in the extended play episode this week. So just go to andymort.com/Patreon, Patreon, to get access to that bonus podcast feed. It's just kind of more behind the scenes stuff that I don't really want to share in public, and discuss certain things going on in my life, and what went into the writing of songs that I've played in the main show as well. So there's already a load of bonus resources there, and past extended episodes. So you get access to all of that as soon as you subscribe. So just go to andymort.com/Patreon to do that. Okay, so back to A Christmas Carol. Now that it's January. We kind of look for things to define us, to explain us, to give us excuses and justifications. And I think A Christmas Carol is one of the most important stories ever told, because it's not about Christmas, it's about life. And there's many kind of parallels with kind of the therapeutic process as well. It's about being released from the anchors that keep us tethered to old ways and thought processes and relationships, the stories that just keep coming up and over, and we keep repeating over and over through our lives, and kind of that like Einsteinian definition of madness being doing the same thing over and over and expecting different results. And this latest adaptation just shows this kind of therapeutic process. It's not one of kind of distant magic of these ethereal ghosts happening on some other realm, but more of one of deep inner work that takes Scrooge from disconnected and disassociated to compassionate and connected, to a part of that broader sense of what it means to be human in all the kind of messiness and chaos that life is defined by. And pains and scars and wounds leave us empty and without feeling. We shut them away. They manifest in other ways. how we treat people, the approach that we have, how turned off we are, the view that we build of the world, cynicism, disinterest, obsession, drive to get even with those we feel wronged by. These are things that insidiously take us over in time. They're not a conscious choice, but they alienate us first from ourselves and then from others and from any sense of deeper emotional connection and joy and that kind of stuff. And so the power of the character of Scrooge is not that he is some grumpy miser who needs to cheer up and be a bit nicer. The power is in the fact that he is me, he is you, he is all of us in the wake of pains and traumas that gradually chip away at our ability to feel anything. Scrooge doesn't get a kick out of the pain he passes on to other people. It's not that he's sadistic. Quite the opposite, in fact. He's isolated, alienated, and alone, unaware of the source of his dislocation until the spirit of Christmas past shows him a scene from his school days when his father had this arrangement with the schoolmaster to basically leave Ebenezer alone at the school over Christmas in exchange for waiving the fees, his school fees, so free schooling. And so his violently abusive father essentially just left him like a lamb to the slaughter, where once again he was abused over and over by this schoolmaster. Nowhere was safe, nowhere was home, until one day his sister came along and rescued him and took him away, saying, their father had gone, and she pulled a gun out on the schoolmaster and revealed to him, that she could basically ruin him with the truth of what he'd been doing. And as the spirit of Christmas past and Scrooge stand outside the school after kind of witnessing this scene, the weight of this revelation is suddenly feeling very real. And there's a really significant moment in Scrooge's thought and healing process.
Just yesterday, Lottie's son came to invite me to dinner. And even he told me that Lottie had always warned him to be patient with me because of a very old pain. But spirits, consider this. This is proof.
Proof? Of what?
What happened to me here at this school. This excuses me. This explains me. And because it's all in the past, nothing can be done to remedy it.
So, you require more than a mincing knife from warm gravy to soften your heart. You only see what your father did to you, not what your sister did for you. Let us go deeper.
When I saw this, it struck me right in the middle of my forehead. This is where so many of us end up. We find an explanation or an excuse, something to blame that we can then use to justify the kind of maintenance of the way that we act, the way that we behave, the things that we do. And so we begin to build a narrative for our lives around that thing, essentially entering the role of victim, keeping it watered with self-pity and holding the world at arm's length because it represents the thing that created the horrific pain that we've experienced. And it is important to appreciate the destruction that has been caused by those external forces there. Those who Ebenezer should have been able to trust, people who should be sources of love and safety and care. It's not okay that this stuff happened. Likewise, for any things that we experience at the hands of other people, it's not okay. This idea, because it's all been done in the past, nothing can be done to remedy it. On one level, this is absolutely true. What is done is done. There is no way to remedy the actions of the past with regards to changing what happened. There is nothing that we can do to alter history. But this is where the next phase comes in. If the first stage is kind of raising that awareness, becoming aware of that thing, the water, seeing the water that we're swimming in, bringing into the open the truth of what happened and recognizing that it wasn't your fault. The second stage is kind of moving from being defined by what is done to you and opening up your eyes to see what is done for you. And this is for us to work through, whatever that looks like for us as individuals. Look for the helpers, amplify the helpers, be grateful for those things, for those people and those situations that are actually contributing something for you, for the world. Eventually you might then be able to see what the painful experiences themselves have made possible for you. Who have they helped you to become? When we become free from the role of victim, we become free to become who we can really be. And this is where the end is so touching. It's where the power of the story transcends personal redemption. It's not about being saved from, eternal torment with his old business partner, Jacob Marley. They engaged in some horrific practices in their business, destroying lives, destroying families, and creating just more untold torture, more untold trauma to other people, and inflicting all sorts of pain on others. The idea that he can just say sorry and be redeemed feels kind of cheap and horrible to Scrooge, and rightly so. And this is not in the sense of a self-pitying sort of like, woe is me, I don't deserve, redemption, I don't deserve to be forgiven. It comes with a real genuine sense that it's like, that's just not fair. And he recognizes these things he's done. He acted in these horrible ways. And another one is with Mary Cratchit, with Bob Cratchit's wife, Bob Cratchit being his basically sole employee, and placed her in the most dehumanizing, belittling position as well, in order to provide money for Tiny Tim's operation. And it was pretty much framed by Scrooge as this experiment in seeing how far someone would go for money, basically. And it's another example of acting from a place of dislocation, an inability to feel. Not because he's a sadist or a sociopath, but because he's lost connection with what it means to be human, with that connection within himself. He's alienated from himself. And then that connection is what then returns in this kind of final moment.
No, I refuse. I refuse to change. All their efforts were for nothing because I refuse redemption.
In God's name, Ebenezer, why?
This fate, this piss-covered second-class grave is exactly what I deserve. And if redemption were to result in some kind of forgiveness, I do not want it. Because I would find a way to justify everything I have done according to the consequence. Because that's who I am. The only thing I want the spirits to do, the only change I want them to make, is to spare the life of him.
Such a powerful moment. And when he returns to the present reality on Christmas Day and makes his way round to the Cratchit family house, it's not the saccharine sweet, I once was blind but now I see kind of scene. It's seasoned with Mary's trauma at the hands of Ebenezer. And nothing can take that away. He doesn't want forgiveness. He knows he's been horrific to her and to others. But he's reached this new point in the process where he can move from thinking only about what he's done to others to a place where he can focus on the future and all that he can do for others. And this is such a powerful shift. It's that sense of moving from that dwelling place in the past as a victim, as a, looking at all that's been done to you. And rightfully so, like there is bad stuff that is kind of unforgivable stuff that's happened. But it's going from seeing yourself as defined by that stuff, by what has been done to you, to a place where you can focus on what you can do for the world, for other people.
I do not know what's happened to you, and I don't care. Your £500 will be welcome, but it will not buy forgiveness.
Nor shall forgiveness ever be earned, or expected, or wanted. My business now is the future. I will just be the best I can be. For the spirits, and the bright light, and the mirror, I thank you.
The future. It's all we can change. It's all we can influence. All we can choose. For the spirits and the bright light and the mirror, I thank you. Aspects of transformation that we all have access to if we seek them. I was really struck by the parallels to my own experiences going through counselling, and from that initial moment of blame for what has been done to you, through the gratitude for everything that has been done for you, out into forever refining the commitment to becoming the best you can be as you step into the future. That story is never over. That transformation is always in the process of becoming and renewing. And yeah, that's kind of my initial reactions to what I thought was an incredible production, The Christmas Carol, by the BBC. I'd definitely advise or suggest you check it out if you've enjoyed that stuff and you haven't seen it. It is dark. You might find it a bit dark, but it's not as dark as people were, complaining that it was. There was a lot of people saying, "Oh, it's like a horror film," and I watched it. I was like, clearly those people have never watched a horror film, so it's not that bad, but it is, it comes with warnings. twisted, are you listed like someone else's word? Breathe like we always used to. See through the eyes we used to. Don't blame the sun, it never fails. It's just cloud that comes and veils all the hope that lies above. What we see is what we love, and we cannot look beyond. You insisted, turned and twisted, argue, listed like someone else's words. These are someone else's words. Using someone else's words, choking on someone else's words, stumbling on someone else's words, someone else's words. So yeah, that's another song of mine, Breathe. It felt kind of right to play at the conclusion of this episode. And I'll chat a little bit more about it on the extended play show as well, and kind of make sense of why it felt right to play. So yeah, find that through Patreon. There's a link in the show notes, or just go to andymort.com/Patreon, where you can get exclusive access to that bonus podcast feed, a whole parallel episode each week, basically, each time I put a podcast out. So yeah, it'd be great to welcome you into that little Patreon community. So just leaves me to say thank you so much for listening today. I would love to ask you a big favor, just like before we go. The best thing that you can do to support the podcast, other than becoming a patron through Patreon, is to rate and comment on the show in your chosen podcast application, wherever you listen to this right now, whether it's on Apple, Google, Stitcher, Overcast, wherever. If you just take a minute to search for the Gentle Rebel podcast there and leave a rating and a review, it would be very, very much appreciated. It just helps to get the show and previous episodes of it into more of the ears of people searching for help and support with these topics that we're exploring each week. So yeah, I'd be grateful, and I'm sure potential future listeners will be maybe grateful. Yeah, cool. All right, I'm going to leave it there, and I'll be back again next time with another episode of the Gentle Rebel podcast. Until then, do remember that you are an artist, that the world needs your art. Now go and make somebody's day. Goodbye.
Angels in disguise, we can be, 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 we can all be angels in disguise, we can be, we can be.